Michael, let's roll.
AJ, how are you?
All good, all good, all good. Welcome inside the coach's room.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, we got connected to our contact. Well, through Lee. We have to give a shout out for this. He said you're going to be an interesting guy, so I'm pretty curious how this will end up. But you already shared something, small things when we just started. But before we go into you and your story and everything, I have one standard question.
Yeah.
That's what is the most essential item in your coach's room or in your office?
A difficult question. So I would probably instantly say I have like circular magnets with the players' faces on and their date of births.
Date of birth,
so that just allows me just to instantly, I guess, change the players around, formations, date of births, what age group category are they playing in? Are they 18s, 23s, first team? And you instantly just rather than just writing a name on a whiteboard, you instantly just have a connection, and you can able to talk to the coaches, the team, and if you want to have a conversation about one of the players, you pull the magnet down, everyone sees who it is, and that, for me, that's that's probably one of my favorite items in probably my coaching toolbox, alongside my colored pens. To be honest, they're important.
Are you the organized type with your book and your pens and everything is pretty strict and straight? Let's call it like that.
Yeah, when it comes to like planning, I do like to have pink, or you might have pink bibs, yellow bibs, green bibs, and I like to have the players' names in those orders. So as soon as I go out onto the pitch, I already know that the greens are going to be greens, etc. So I do like to have that, but we will have our days where you've got to work quite innovatively, off the cuff and sharp. So I don't mind that either. But if I can plan, then that's exactly how I would do it.
Yeah. So the way the items in your coach's room are connected to your way of working, and that's you're planning ahead. You find the structure that what's coming, and then it gives you kind of the space to connect to surprises or injuries or whatever happens. Because you're so good prepared. I kind of hear this. It's easy to adapt.
It's easy. And I always say you're not working with just X's and O's. Like you're actually now you've got the magnet of the face. You're working with the player. What does that player need? And that's ultimately why I love the magnets, because everyone can draw their X's and O's, and A passes to B passes to C. But when you're now talking about your right centre half, who may have to cap out, go through the goalkeeper, becomes more individual.
And I can imagine you're also, once you're talking, then you're talking, you're seeing his face, or it's Joffrey. You're talking about a name, and you're using his name instead of player A, player B. Different atmosphere as well. And I like that you put the dates of birth on it. Never heard that. Because especially in your age, I can imagine you have the talented 16, 17-year-olds or 15-year-olds even in your team already. But they are in a different phase of their career or in their pathway than the 18s that may be already pushing towards the first team, or you have a youth talent coming back from the first team. So you know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, it makes it easier. So what I tend to do is have, for example, we'll have younger under 16s that are using their under 18s, our under 18s using the 23s, and the 23s using the first team. So what I tend to do is have, for example, a blue background magnet for the 16s, a white background magnet, for the 18s, and then you might have like a red background magnet for the 23s. So when you actually put your team together, you can instantly see, you've got an under 16 in there just based off the background. You've got an under 23, whatever it may be, in there. So that's quite helpful as well. And for other people coming in to have a look, they can instantly see who's part of the team, what your makeup of the team is. So that's why it's one of my favorite.
Great. Great. How often do you use it? How often do you have these
Every
talks
day.
every day? Yeah.
Every day. Yeah. Every
It's
day.
you and your assistant, and maybe the backroom staff, or you're talking about, okay, this is what we're going to do, and you're always in the front of the board.
That area is so important. It's an area of the board. So you've got your magnet board of your starting 11 potentially. Then you've got your notes board where you can make notes next to it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the team will consist of the coaching staff, the sports science staff, medical staff, analysis staff, and then what else will you have? You'll have obviously the education psychologist. So every morning, and the goalkeeper. Head of goalkeeping will come in. So every morning we'll go through and we'll break it down, go through each department, how it's going to run, what we're going to do, what are the outcomes for the session. And then once that's all done, myself and the coach, Michael, alongside me, will plan the session.
Okay. What time do you have this meeting?
Have this meeting every day at 9:45.
9:45, strict.
Yeah.
And what time is the session?
Session will start at 11:30.
Okay. So you have an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
That's your routine with your staff.
Yeah.
How do you experience leading? Well, you're leading the staff. I know you just told me I'm not always the leader, but okay, you're responsible. How does this role fit you? Because you have to can imagine you have to kind of grow in this and discussing with your staff and sometimes be the front man, sometimes maybe be the pusher from the back.
Yeah.
How do you like this? How do you experience this?
I always think you got to be clever at delegating. So as much as I lead it, there's going to be days where I may not be in. I may have to support the 23s, or I may have to support some of the 18s gone to the first team. So I always take the approach, if you're constantly trying to take over and lead and be that sort of overbearing, I say this, you must do that, then the moment you go, people just tend to do their own thing. But if you encourage them and embrace them to be part of the journey to help the players, then you're always going to be, the arrow is always going to be going in the direction that you want it to go. So, I'm happy to, let others even lead the meeting, see how they get on. I'm happy to give feedback. But ultimately, I know that the buck stops with me. So, I can't just be like wishy-washy. Yeah, you do that, you do that. There has to be direction, and I make sure I give that direction. Once that direction's given and I'm happy with whoever may have to step up and lead, then I know I've done that job to show them how it goes. I've got a template that must be followed, so we'll go through medical first, then we'll go through sports science, then we'll go through psychology, then we'll go through analysis. That's just part of how we plan every single day. So, that should be, set in stone. They should know that, maybe a small little bit on, what the coaching fee may look like for the day that I may implement. But then, for example, if me and you are working and we're working on playing out from the back and pressing from the front, for example, then I may say, AJ, could you just work on pressing from the front? I don't mind how you do it, but could you press with your wingers jumping on the centre halves? And you could maybe aggressive on the second phase opposed to the first phase. And then I'll work on playing up from the back. And it's my job to break down whatever you do with me.
Interesting. How did you, because you came from Tottenham to Reading. From Tottenham, you were more in an assistant role, if I'm correct.
Well, I started off in an assistant role.
You grew more and more towards head coach.
So
now you're in the U18s, which brings in more and more staff. I can imagine the older the age group you work, the more people are involved. What was the first time that you, or maybe your first experience that you said, okay, now this brings something extra in me, and now I have to be prepared differently, or I have to approach this differently, because you cannot do everything yourself.
No,
or you cannot control everything either.
Yeah, you can't. So I'm saying that the machine's too big, and it goes so quick, and it's ever changing. So you've got to build trust. But maybe I have that approach. I think back when I was first an assistant, and it was quite difficult because you have to earn the trust of the coach that you're working with. And like when I started, I was quite a young coach. I know I got on really well with all the young players that I worked with, so I could build relationships really quickly. And sometimes, that if you're not really secure in where you are, that some coaches can find that threatening. So, sometimes you can find yourself just picking the cones up, and you've got to have no ego about you to do that. Pick up the cones, pick up the bibs, like you're itching to do a session, like, can I do? No, wait, just wait. I don't want you doing a session yet. And I found that really difficult because I felt I had so much more to give than just picking up the cones and just being the guy who, like says, well done, everybody. And that's something that I had to learn to really wait. And when your moment comes, just be prepared. So if the coach says, for example, Michael, could you just progress this session on? I would always be thinking ahead. I'd always be like, if he asks me, I'm going to be ready. If he asks me, I'm going to be ready. And the moment that
when was
I got
this?
This was at Spurs when I was working with the under, I think it was the under 10s or so, under 11s. And it so happened there's a few, that was happening week after week that, I started to get some opportunities to progress. And then one day the coach wasn't in, and then I found out short notice. And then all of a sudden you've got everybody watching you. You've got the head of the academy, assistant head of the academy. You've got 10 minutes of preparation time. And you're not, your moment comes, but you have to deliver because this is what you want to do. Unfortunately, that's where, because I was always waiting for the opportunity and I was always ready, no matter what, I always had a session in my head and I delivered that session and it went really well. And, from that, I always learned from one, be ready, but two, anyone who's around you, give them, if they're wearing a tracksuit, help them on their journey. And that's maybe why I'm so open in making sure that people that are around, they don't just stand about, they've got something to offer. So how can you bring it out of them? And that's probably the best way, I guess I can describe it.
Yeah. And what I recognize in this part is, okay, you've been on the sideline and you're eager, and all of a sudden there, and then, it's a little bit of a exciting moment, a little bit of tension could be there. But you want to show that you're good, and then you don't have to overshow it. You just be yourself, and you should be prepared, and then the rest comes itself. And then what I noticed, but I was working with a little bit of older players, that when you're the assistant, I don't know how that's actually with younger age. Maybe you can add to this, but with younger players or with older players, you're not the decision maker, and so the impact of a decision you don't feel. So if you're an assistant, you're always the safe guy, the one they can go to and complain. You're the guy that they can connect with. It's fine. But as soon as you become the head coach, I think maybe 13, 14-year-old, this process will start. Then the head coach makes the decision and he puts you on the bench or whatever. He makes a decision that the player doesn't like. It's completely the opposite of the safe assistant role. How did you experience this? Because you also had this transfer from being assistant to becoming now head coach already a couple of years. How did you experience this?
It was so even at my time at Spurs, actually going through assistant, and then becoming the lead of the youth development department, the lead of the 14s to 16s, etc. You see it, so you see the change, you see the looks, you see that the players are not particularly happy with you, but you've got to make those decisions. But because they're that little bit younger, you can always they're still growing, so they're still actually maturing through. So you can always sit them down, have that conversation with them, and this is the reasons why. But I found now at 18s level, when they're close to the first team, you instantly become the bad guy. So they won't talk to you for a week or 10 days or whatever it may be. There will be that they will take it personally. It's your fault, Michael, why I'm not playing. It isn't the fact that I'm not fit enough or I haven't hit my targets. Like you've got an issue with me. So I always try to break it down. Do I have an issue with you, or do I have an issue with your performance or behavior? So take you out of the equation as one, and then let's really break it down now. Your behavior or your performance? Now, if we look at your behavior, are you hitting what you need to be? Are you working as hard as you can be working? Is your demeanor around the building, good enough? Are you exhibiting elite behaviors? Are you on time, etc.? So we'll break all of that down. Then we'll obviously go and break down now your performance, and then we'll get to a point where it isn't personal. This is it. It's really important that you break those bits down. That's what I found. If you can eliminate the personal and build on the sort of growth mindset side of things, then you've got half a chance of winning them around. But you can't be too soft. Someone's got to be the bad guy, and sometimes you take pleasure in it because ultimately you wanted to get them to the next level.
The more responsibility, or maybe the the more top of an organization or staff, whatever, it's a little bit more lonely than let's say if you, it's not if let's call it a pyramid, it's lonelier at the top than in the bottom. It's exactly what it is. Are you the type of guy that notices such a player, maybe let him walk around with 2-3 days and then walk up to him, or are you the type that sees it and goes instantly? How do you?
I think it all depends. Come back down to the magnets. It all depends on the type of individual that it is. There's a few that you can really, I think, in my experience, that you can really go and like batter, in front of everybody, and be like, look, this is not acceptable, because you'll get the right reaction. But there's a couple that I think those players that you can really get at and really dig deep into and like dig out, they're the ones that normally go on because they give you the great reactions.
Yeah.
The other ones, you may have to softly build them up and, just let them know that a shelling's going to be coming soon enough, but you need to really start, picking it up now because it's not acceptable. But what you can't do is allow those behaviours to fester too long, because then all of a sudden you will start losing respect, because if he's, tossing off the session, then the other one isn't. The other one's going to do the same thing.
Or especially in let's say in the age group you work with, and you have to show that you are still the authority, and in some ways, and that the rules are rules. You cannot bend them or break them, and just because because you're having a bad day, or just because you think I'm an asshole, that it doesn't work like that. No, of course.
But also, if I get it wrong, like without doing it, what happens when they go to the first team? So if I don't challenge it, they go to the first team, then the manager's going to look at me, and he can look at the player and be like, well, what have you been doing down there?
Yeah, what kind of player did you bring me?
And that can't happen. So we've got to make sure that the player doesn't fail when they go up there. They can't fail on their behavior.
Yeah. Before we started recording today, I'm also a little bit of a modest guy, maybe a little bit of an introvert sometimes. We were talking more towards this podcast and you being here.
Yeah.
But I have the feeling that once you step on the pitch, that's all gone.
Yeah. I'm quite a relaxed person. I love having a laugh. Really, really chilled. I'm not in your face, but I think once you cross the line, you go to work. Once we go to work, we go to work. So, if that means that we have to battle and fight and scratch and scream, then if that gets us through, that's what we do. Yeah. But I believe if we're well prepared, then that doesn't need to happen. But I don't tend to pull punches when we're working. I think at the highest level there isn't time for that. So, you've got, once you start working, you start working.
Yeah. Is that also important for the age group, for let's say U16 to U20s, that they learn how to train, they learn how to be a professional, and this is part of it?
Definitely. You have to have the elite standards. You have to. We talk about, we have something we call pride. So it's like a personal responsibility in delivering excellence. Like if you break it right down. Yeah. So it's so important that when we go out to work, that it becomes a habit. And those habits, then start to fester in the group, and then people start catching those good habits. And then all of a sudden, your train's moving at full speed. And anyone that's not on it, they fall off. And that's what you've got to get to. You've got to get to the train building so much momentum in such a positive way that if you're not part of it, then unfortunately we teach the top. And if you're not at the top, then you're going to start falling to the back of the train.
Yeah.
And
can
eventually
you
end up at the
pride?
back.
It stands for the 5 words.
So we use
go into those 5 a little bit, because it's interesting.
Yeah, no problem. So we go off of like personal. So obviously the self-explanatory, down to yourselves, having that responsibility. Yeah, having a responsibility to do well, to train well, to be on time, etc. In delivering, making sure that you ensure that you continue those behaviors to deliver excellence. Okay. Personal responsibility in delivering excellence. That's something that I always try to work by, especially when I'm coaching.
Is it something from your personal, or is it from the club?
No, personal. Yeah.
Personal, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
At one time
you found this is the word, and then it's a nice metaphor, and you can break it down very easy in explanation and easy to use in discussions or talks. Yeah.
Yeah, easy.
Okay. Well, and is it so back to, let's say, the working ethics of this group, and this is this is what you need to differentiate yourself from the rest. And okay, everybody at your club at Reading at this age is probably talented, but only the ones that work the hardest will get there. That's kind of the situation in every pro club, of course. And what is the main characteristic that you coach on then, or the main theme that you focus on with them? So ethics, but within that, what is the most important, you think?
Good question, AJ. I think at the moment we've got, because the club have real young players, but also we've been quite light on the players in the first team.
Yeah.
The door's open. So we've had a lot of under 18s and under 23s go to the first team. Yeah. And sometimes they're not ready yet. So, and that means that they'll get sent straight back down. So one of the big things that we've really had to work on this season, I guess, is one, building a resilience, but two, making sure that they're technically outstanding. So you can't go and break the session. So you can't go in the first team and break the session because, you've had a bit of a wobble and your level's not good enough. Yeah. So we've got to take that personally as coaching staff and be like, look, the door's open, and that's the pressure itself that he's going to call and say, look, I need some players. So the players have to be ready. But when they go over there, he wants them to be sharp, on time, enthusiastic, as all managers do want them to. But for us, because we're so young, they've got to be going and kicking the door down. So, we go in there and we really work hard on the technical capabilities of the players, but also on their mindset and how they go over there. So can they go over and be ready? Can they go over and be sharp? Can they go over and be confident? Stay and do extras, pick up the cones, small things like that. Just be very much around the group, but in a positive way.
Okay. So is it that almost seems like that there are more opportunities than before? And maybe is it COVID related? Or
definitely.
So there's more, maybe if I can assume something, in the first teams there are players are less resilient. COVID has all kinds of effects, COVID itself, but maybe in the long run with injuries or players being away longer, whatever. So for youth players, it's now easier than ever. Let's call it like that.
Yeah, definitely.
And now they have to pick up the pace.
Yeah. There's no time. So if we're training at a snail's pace down there, and then all of a sudden the door flies open, 4 players, for example, each week we have maybe 3 to 4 under 18s that are always on the bench for the first team, just because of all the COVID and the injuries, and and so they train with us in the 23s day in, day out, unless the first team manager wants them. So we can't be putting sessions on that aren't at that real elite level, because an injury, they're one injury away from starting the game. Yeah. We've had 1 or 2 start recently, which is great.
Yeah. So you have them, in front of you, and let's say halfway the week, and then one moves up, maybe stays out a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I can imagine that they come back also more often, because so many rotations. That's that's the opposite process, because you maybe have a player that I think, I see, I am the one. Bye, guys. Never going to see him again. Okay, I'm joking, of course, but he feels all confident. His chest is up in the air. He's going there, and then after a couple of weeks, maybe because the first team player is coming back, or the manager says, "Sorry, I was expecting more." Then he's coming back. What type of players do you get back, and what do you see in this?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what happens. And so, right at the beginning, I mentioned that we have those players that go up and come back down, and the resilience is so important. Yeah. But sometimes some of those players, they don't see that. They just see, I'm in the first team now. 1 game, 2 games, 3 games. All of a sudden, no, forget about Michael and the rest of them. I'm up there now. So, and
he only waves at you for
you're lucky. You might even not get a wave. They just walk past. They've got their wash bag now. They walk into the first team building. I was like, "Hi, do you remember me?" It's like, "Nah, don't remember you now." But we've got to teach them. The same people that help you get up are the same ones on the way back down that you will see. So, we always make sure the boys are aware you are not a player in the first team until you've played at least 100 games. Yeah. That's all you are. You're an academy player. You're not a first team player yet. So we've got to be honest with them, because it's a difficult process to really make them understand that, you're not a first team player yet. You're just there to help out at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's hard for a young person to understand.
How do you switch in that role if a player comes back or you see him in that struggle? What's your approach?
Constant one-to-ones. Like the ones that we're fortunate enough to have back and still able to play with us, then it's just breaking the game down, using analysis sessions and talking to them and then getting them to watch the first team player in that position. And that makes it much easier for us and the player. And then you get to build a brilliant relationship because, you're trying to help them stay there, because ultimately that's where you want them to be. The difficulty probably comes is the ones that are with the first team so often, but the manager wants them to be there, but he doesn't want them to play because he doesn't want them to get injured.
Yeah.
So they're in that real grey area bit. And how do you support them? And that's more phone calls when you see them walking into the first team building. When you're going to the academy, they're going to first team. Get 2 or 3 minutes. How's it going?
Yeah.
What you're learning. What's he asking you to do? How can I help you? And that's the best bits. It's good, but it's difficult. It is difficult.
What is the most difficult for you in that, or for the player?
Not knowing where they stand. So that's what I always get a lot of, just be like, I'm always in the shadow team. Like, I'm never in the first team. I always got to just be the opposition. So even in those practices, I say, well, still do what you can do. So when it's a bit of free play, still catch the eye. Rather than playing safe, can you pass forward? Can you carry it? Can you, don't break the session, but, make sure you still catch the eye because you're there for a reason. And then in training, when it's not shape work, can you go another level? Because you're going to get your chance eventually. But, you have to be ready. You can't be sulking, because there's more experienced players, but doesn't mean that you're not ready.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I know for younger players, the first 2-3 times they're all yes, trainer, of course, and then it's all yes and amen. But once they're a little bit longer, and there's nothing really changing, and they keep putting on the orange bib instead of the yellow one.
Yeah.
At one point, especially when they were the star of their own team,
exactly.
Then it's becoming interesting. Okay, and how do you deal this? So at the same time, when players are moving up. I can imagine you also have your youngsters, U15s, U16s coming towards you, coming towards your team. So at one point you see your players going there, compliment, coming back. At the same time, you have the youngsters coming up, maybe going back.
Yeah.
How is this for you? Also with the youngsters, but also in this. Well, I kind of already know you have this. You have your magnet, so you are highly organized. So that's not a problem. Yeah. So you have a lot of time for talking and experiencing all these emotions with the players. Yeah.
So the younger ones coming up is always, I always look at it as a breath of fresh air because, they're coming in and they're excited. They're with the youth team. Some even go with the 23s. Just to get that option. We're really close to 18s and 23s. Us as staff and the players, we try to always build clinics into them. So midfielders together, attackers together, defenders together, and we do loads of practices like that. So that helps them, the younger ones, be a little bit more relaxed when they do come into the environment that we create. But you also have to bear in mind that you've got as 15, 16-year-old potentially training with like an 18-year-old. The 18-year-old is upset, he's not up. The 15-year-old's really excited. So you've got to really balance it out really, really well, and that's where difficulties can lie at times. But again, I always think if you create the right environment, making it competitive, making sure you match it competitively, so you don't just have like your 3 16s in with the 3 18s who are flying, but actually you might just get one of the top 18s, one of the top 16s, top 18, top 16, and then you go head to head that way, and then you make it competitive. Then ultimately it's football and somebody wants to win. So, that's the way you try to make it as competitive as you can, but also as exciting. So I love loads of games, and like my favorite one at the moment is rock, paper, scissors. We've got a real big tournament going off of that. Okay. And that really creates an environment where the 16s can feel relaxed.
To make a final decision, or is it the type of session that you organize?
No, I'll do it in terms of sometimes final decision in terms of a game, but I normally start with rock, paper, scissors or a knockout passing championship game.
Okay,
So one touch, knockout until you get to like tennis, till you get to the final. And then everybody watches the final, one touch until the winner comes.
Yeah.
And I'll do something similar with rock, paper, scissors, just to really start it off. And because you've got so many emotions in the group, it's best to start off as much as you can on a real buzz. And then that helps your session instantly just fly a little bit.
Is that more important now with all these changes, or did you did you do that also before?
I loved it when I worked with the younger kids. I always did it to get, especially in camps, when you did loads of camps. I always did loads of fun games like that. But I've found now, and it's great. I've got a comparison of obviously Tottenham Hotspurs and Reading, but I found that the boys at Spurs mindsets, and because they're always had Champions League games, they may have like Barcelona in the youth league or wherever it may be, that their focus was really, really driven really early. And you could really get into those players because the professionalism was really high. And I found that Reading, that you get there. So, it takes a little bit of time to really drill the expectations of what it is at Champions League. And then now, obviously, at Reading, to get that level, some jump at it really well and some really climb. But the more you can build the environment of that top level, then you get more buy-in. You can't be... I found I couldn't be that coach at Spurs where I was really demanding all the time and then try to be the same guy at Reading and be demanding. Yeah. You can't, because they don't know what that is yet. So you've got to show them. So I've really learned that. That's been a real big, and that's why the games like the rock, paper, scissors to build the environments first has really allowed me to then become more demanding. Yeah. I've learned that because that took a while for me to learn.
Okay, cool. So at Spurs, you didn't really need that because they were switched on straight away.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you're saying. And then now they need to have this break of atmosphere and maybe have this screaming, joking, laughing, and then it's there. But it needs to be created a little bit. That's kind of what
it needs to be created more. So, definitely. Yeah, 100%. Because that's something I had to learn because it was, probably too listen, this is what we got to do. Expected everyone to be on time, expected everything to be done in order. Yeah. I couldn't understand it at first. I was like, whoa, why are we not on time? Why are you not just passing it there?
You're playing for a pro club. What the?
Yeah. Exactly. And I really had to learn that. So you've got to build it, and that's something that I would definitely take with me into my other journeys.
Okay. So and then we already a little bit discussed it before it was a couple of weeks, maybe even longer ago. But your own development, and then you went from, let's say, the elite of the elite clubs in the Netherlands. Of course, there are more in England, but one of the elite academies. And then you moved to Reading, which you could say, based on names, is a move down, whatever. People can assume whatever they want.
Of course.
But you said it was very important for your development as a coach.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was a choice that you made specifically because you wanted to make this switch. Why?
I think you get to a point where you become comfortable. You become very comfortable in what you're doing. You are the person everybody goes to. Most things rely on you there, and you're comfortable. Spurs was good. You're earning good money. You're 5 minutes. I live 5 minutes away from the training ground. It's right around the corner. But ultimately, I think you've got to get to a point where you want to grow. And if you want to grow, sometimes it's got to be uncomfortable. And people always said, why are you leaving Champions League club to go to a Championship club? It's one below the Premier League. It doesn't make sense. But then I've got the opportunity to work in the under-18s, assist and help out the 23s, assist and help out the first team. And I'm like, you ain't going to get that at Spurs at that moment in time. So my first session at Reading was taking first team players. That was my very first session. Because there was 6 first team players that had just come back from injury. There was a couple that needed to get some running through their legs, that sort of thing. So they said, do you mind taking the session? Because the first team coach has got something to do. The assistant coach is helping out, and you're the next in line. But that was my very first session, And that tells me there, that's the reason why I took the step. And from then it's been difficult, of course, because you're competing with Chelsea, Spurs, Arsenal, all these top academies as a Category 1 academy, but in the lower division.
Yeah.
The preparation I have to do now is I'm not going to have the ball. At Spurs, I'd always have the ball. Now, how can you win the game without the ball and be competitive?
So there's
my development,
changes.
Amazing.
Exactly. I hear 2 changes in your development, which is huge boost. One is you're going to get into situations that you wouldn't be in Tottenham because everything is so maybe even over organized that they have 3-4 assistants lined up to do everything around one team. So you could almost say it's never chaotic, which is obviously a good thing, but it also sometimes being in chaos or being less organized is also a good thing. You have to be much more hands-on, do things yourself. So that's an interesting part I hear. And at the same time, your football philosophy and ideas, well, they don't have to change, but you have to adapt them to the situation.
Yeah. You have to.
Yeah, great. Were you stuck in your attacking style and then your first game's okay, what the hell is happening here? Or how did it go?
I'll be honest, my first season was because when I got a phone call to say, look, we've got a really talented group, would love you to sort of come over and work with them. I looked at the group and I thought, they're quite a talented group. So I went over and we done really well. We got to semi-final of the cup. They've never ever sort of got that far before. We done relatively well in the league, which was good. So it was great. It was really, really good. And then the second season I started.
It felt like no change.
Almost. Yeah, almost. Of course, there was still little bits where we'd always or
maybe a little bit more of a team effort instead of some talented individuals could be.
For example, rather than someone, the game's 0-0 and someone takes the ball out their feet and bends in the top corner and then you win the game 1-0 or someone scores a hat-trick and you win 3-2. Like now, it's more of a slow process with very good players, and we enjoyed it as a team. I really enjoyed it. The next season was a little bit more difficult because that group had then gone. So it was now having to learn. Actually, I've always been having the balls, always sit back and chill out, and a few occasional words we need to do now. I've changed I'm like Conte on the sideline. I'm up and down, I'm running, I'm heading. It becomes
like playing with the players.
No, you are. You become more animated because now your messages have to be so clear. You can't. You can't just be, I want you to get the ball, play it there, and that's it. You have to really break it down and structure it. Honestly, I can't tell you how great it's been for my development. And this is me not being detrimental, disrespectful to the Reading players, but I'm saying that you have to.
Pretty sure
the difference is big. They understand it.
Otherwise, they would have played that. It's that fair.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
They can still get there.
Of course, that's the thing. They can get there, and we've proved that we are, if we apply ourselves, just as good on our day than any of those players and any of those teams. And that's the mindset that you've got to have. You've got to get it right collectively. And that's what Reading's about.
Yeah. Okay. So that's more of a club philosophy as well. So we do it as a team.
As a team.
The team is bigger than yourself, of course.
Yeah.
But that's part of the identity as well there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then if I would have looked at you at Spurs, I would have seen a coach that's probably arms are across each other and then doing the occasional nod and then 5-6 coach moments each half.
Yeah.
What else? The players have to sort it out themselves. Probably that was part of the philosophy, I think.
Yeah.
And then now you're in the situation. Then how big is the box around my chairs? How much more should I run? Is that the change? What did it change for you? Also in your in your emotions, or what happened with you during this process?
The referee, I've been booked, which is like
that was
that was my first ever. I've been told to stay in my technical area. I've had I've had a few. You become even more engrossed because you know just how hard the boys are working to compete. So that means
much more involved.
I can't afford to not get my game plans right. And there's been times, especially when I first started in that second season, where because you never know what you're going to get in terms of players, you could get caught really cold. And I've had a few where you've lost 5-1 or, and before I'd be like 5-1. How? Come on. Like how? And you look at me, like, how have I managed to lose 5-1? What have I done wrong? So now it really is.
My tactics board for fucking hour. What the fuck am I doing? In your head.
Always. You've got to then look at yourself. What's gone wrong? And that's where now my preparation that I try to have, is so methodical. I try to in position, out position, set pieces for, set pieces against. I've never looked at that before. Set pieces, all that stuff. You'd have someone who bend it in for you, like just pull it on the money every time. Now it's just constant planning, and that helps you no end. Like, how can you win a game out of possession? Like, it's brilliant. You'd never think that before, But that's what I definitely encourage to. If you get an opportunity to make a step that's different, and you're going to grow from it, you got to take it.
Yeah, that's the. I think I like the way that you're saying that. It's a different step. It's not a better or worse or whatever. It's a different phase in your development as a coach. I think that's the way you should approach. That's hard, I think, because people always want to see that line. Okay, next year I'm going to move up an age, and then I'm going to move up a level, and moving up an age, level, whatever, because it's a straight line. Everybody thinks.
Yeah.
There are different steps that's going to make you much better.
Definitely.
Last week we were talking with Albert Capella, Spanish coach, and he said, okay, in the beginning of my coaching career, I coached everything that I could coach. Didn't matter. Everything was going to be something that's going to improve my development. It didn't matter for him. And I'm not saying that you're doing something that doesn't matter, but you take from every experience, you take something that you add to your knowledge and add to your development. Okay, interesting. But it's interesting to see your as well. And I recognize that pattern as well. So, okay, my first season, the head coach, senior team, second place halfway this season as a club that was promoted. Everything went so smooth. Second season, the best players all left. We were bottom of the season the whole year. I was going crazy on my preparation as well. Okay. And then still, you cannot control if the opponent is better.
Yeah.
There's sometimes just something, not always you can I'm sorry, I'm not getting the words right. You can't do something about it all the time. Sometimes they're just better players. They outplay you.
Yeah, that's, it's tough, because I find that so hard to accept that, but you're right, because, it doesn't really matter what tactics you put on and, what sessions you do, because sometimes some players are just going to be on their game so much that you can't stop them. But I pride myself on making sure, even though you may be playing a better team, have you stopped or attempted to stop every one of those top players or every pattern that they do? Are your players so prepared that if they don't win this game or they don't compete, that you've given everything? And that's the way I've started to look at it, opposed to, they're going to be better. Like, 'cause I know most of these players, I know a lot of them because I've seen them all at that top level coming through since they were young. So, but I now make sure there's no fear in the boys because we are prepared as best as we can. Like, so we're playing Manchester United in January in the Youth Cup in a few weeks' time. The Youth Cup's the most prestigious tournament in English football. So it's the FA Cup. So it'll be the fourth round.
Okay.
So my job is everyone's expecting us to lose that game. But I'm not. I'm making sure that we are prepared, and we may lose, but we may win. And that's the way I'm going. And if we win, it won't be a surprise to me.
And if the players see your approach on to the game every week, and they see this approach, they're going to start to believe, and they're going to perform that 10-15% better than they actually can with themselves or in a different way. So if the coach keeps preparing and sees chances and creates chances every week, it does something with the team as well.
It does. It does.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it only takes 1 or 2 wins, AJ. You build confidence, and then all of a sudden, and that's where we're at the moment. We build those small little bits of confidence. Get your clean sheets, get your goals, or start creating chances. Yeah. Those chances start turning to goals, and all of a sudden, you've got 3 back-to-back wins, 4 back-to-back wins, and then it's bring on anybody. It becomes a draw. It becomes a win. So, and that's the environment I try to create. We're always the underdog. Great. Let's take it on. Be the underdog. No problem. We go about our business nice and quietly. Nobody thinks about us. But when we come out, this is going to be a game. And that's the way I try to do it.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah.
But how do you ban? Because my biggest, I think it was even a mistake, but my biggest temptation was to only focus then on winning in the process and beating the opponent and be compact and let's say, how can we unrattle the opponent? How can you unrattle their system or whatever? How do you balance this with the development of the players and your own playing style and looking at yourself? Because I went too far looking at the opponent. I should have I felt like I should have focused more on my own team. How do you balance this?
So ultimately, my job is to get players in the first team. It isn't to beat, it isn't to beat, Chelsea away, and think these 3 points are important. But then I also have to acknowledge that getting those 3 points is also learning how to win. And if you learn how to win, that allows you to get yourself into more winning teams. The first team need winners. So, we have to create an environment where you have to learn to win. But also, you can only learn to win by doing the right things right more often. So, my job is to make sure my centre halves on my back, my defenders ultimately stop goals. My midfielders stop and create opportunities. And if they can score, that's great. My goal scorers, they score. Right? So do they stop? Do they score? Do they create? And that's what I have to make sure that they do as much as possible. So when it comes down to looking at the opposition, I think we have to obviously look at them. How do we stop them? How do we, break them down where their weakness is? But I think as long as the diet in training is geared around developing those individuals as best as they can, and then come to the game day, the diet's already there, but now the game plan is there to help the diet take away what, or take onto the pitch what you really should know and what you can do more often. And that's the way I try to sort of, break it down.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Yeah, learning to win is a big part in that. Learning to compete, learning to win is of course much more important. And also, you're right, and also in that age, it's also learning maybe to compete in the league. So that's also winning a couple of games in a row and setting a standard for yourself on the game day. That's also much more part of the process in that age, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's important.
Okay, interesting. Well, we talked a lot about your team. I think we kind of already heard a little bit about your development on players. What is it you think the most important in your own development? So talk about how you develop your teams, how you talk to them, but maybe you go home or you sit in front of your tactics. What moments do you use to develop yourself?
I guess I got a thing called on standards. So I think for yourself, you got to set yourself standards. So I always use something sticks in my head all the time. As one of my old managers told me, your standards are what you're prepared to walk past. So, for example, if we take, I lose a game on the weekend and I don't look at it back and I don't assess it, then that's a standard that you've walked past that, you've left it, you've boxed it away, but have you really learned from it? Yeah. So, and I'll get in trouble from this. Like the missus will be like, that he lost the game, just shut the laptop and just, just watch something on television. And, you know, I'll be like, okay, no problem. But as soon as their back turns, the laptop's back up, and then, you know, so I think, I've developed a real obsession of, you know, development for myself. So where did I go wrong? How did I go wrong? Okay, and then how do I fix it? So that just comes from loads of analysis back on the game, speaking to my mates on the phone, speaking to colleagues who watch the game. So I've got a few good colleagues that, you know, at the club I work with and ones I worked with previously. And we are constantly on the phone about games, about development, about sessions, about books. It's never ending. I think the moment you stop that, then I think that's when you probably need to call it a day. That's how I feel.
Okay, so it's a process for yourself. So okay, I can imagine. No, I'm thinking match related or training. Do you video your session? What do you videotape the sessions? Yeah, so you can watch them back. So
every session. But I also get videoed as well. So I also ask to get filmed.
That was where I was going.
Yeah.
So that's relatively, you see the pattern. Okay, I made this mistake, or I should focus more on compactness or whatever. It's patterns or system principles. But now it comes down to you. So you get recorded as well. How does that go?
So she got head of coaching. Will come down. So we've got a new head of coaching actually. A guy called Anthony. He's really good at the moment. We had I've always had good relationships with my head of coaching. I had one called John Allpress. He was a FA coach developer, national team, and he came over and he was outstanding for me. Like, you know, he would come over and challenge me. Why have you done that? What are you getting out for him? What is he getting out of it? And he'd be like, well, I'm doing that because that's great, but what is he getting out of it? So it's great. It looks brilliant. The session does, but he's not getting enough out of it. You know, all the crosses have been on the floor. There's been none in the air.
Find the holes in your game, the holes
constantly,
in your sessions,
constantly, and that's the way I actually found. Some will be a little bit more, oh, that's a really good session, and I got to the point I didn't want to hear anything good. Like, you know, I just wanted to know, like, what do you think? Like, you know, where could I be better? What did you think of the session? And that's where it just became a real. Like, it's great to say well done. I liked your session, but I never want to hear that. So I ban the word good. So if I ask the players, like, oh, what do you think of the session today? And they said, oh yeah, it was good. No, you're not allowed to say that. Okay. You can't say that. You know, you have to, what was good, what didn't you like? And I always get the same for anyone that watches the session. Don't say, yeah, I thought your session was good today. All right, well, what was good about it? Or what didn't you like? And that's the way I always work over that. I love to get filmed.
In your evaluation as well?
Yeah, always. Okay. Always.
And the head of coaching. So, and then do you look at to go back to the players is one. I like to do that as well, especially maybe 5 seconds after the session plan or training exercise stopped. Okay, how was this? Because then you get honest feedback, at least if the atmosphere is like that, which I think in your case is. And also, if something doesn't work and 3 or more players are complaining, then you should acknowledge, okay, this is not working. I didn't properly think this through, or whatever. It came out different than I thought.
Yeah.
And then then somebody's there with a camera once in a while, I can imagine, or maybe every time.
Yeah, once in a while.
Yeah. And is it on your request, or is it something that's built in the club? Or
sometimes it's just random. It's just be like, I'm filming you today.
Okay.
You know, like when you're just setting up and like you're like all right, then come on, then, like, you know. But yeah, you know. So, but I prefer that because I think if you say no, it's because you're worried about something.
Yeah.
You know, you're worried. You know, so and that's the best time to be filmed. You know, because then you're gonna see like why you were worried. You know, so you know, some people get really annoyed with it, but I'm at the point where, like, if they come, great. If they don't, no problem. Because ultimately, the players are going to be the best judges anyway, and you know that's why I also ring the players afterwards. Not all the time, but if I didn't think it was a great session, I'd ring them afterwards or drop them a message and say, "What do you think of training today? You know, like did you like that bit that I did there, or what were your thoughts on it?" and some of the feedback is amazing. It's so good. That's the best, especially on match days when you're planning for matches. Like they'll be like, "Can you do that again?" Or "No, I'm not sure about that one."
Yeah, and they can think. They are mature enough to think in the process as well, and they have good input as well.
Yeah,
you have 20 players on the pitch that all know football. They're already playing it for 12 years or longer even. So they can give you a lot of input as well, especially on game day, maybe in tactical decisions or how does it feel when we do this and this. You get a lot of feedback input from the players.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, great. What was the thing that you learned from looking at yourself? What was the thing that you maybe didn't realize but you were doing as type of coaching, or maybe being the Conte guy now? But what was the thing that you noticed when you saw yourself during a session or during a game?
I say during the sessions, I sometimes felt that I moved on too quickly.
Okay.
So especially on some of the technical areas where the players really needed to, some of the players got it. So I've got a thing where I only teach to the top of the class. So once the top of the class has got it, I'll move on because you got to catch up because there isn't time. But actually, sometimes you might just have to change that top of the class a little bit, make them do a little bit extra, or make it a little bit more difficult, and then allow the others to catch up. Because if the gulf gets too big on certain things, then you're failing not only the top but the bottom. So like that's something I definitely looked at. I looked at some of the sessions. I was like, move on, next one. No, like you're not good enough at that, so we're going to stay there. But actually, we needed to stay there a little bit longer for those, just to get a little bit closer, to allow it to be a bit smoother. So
even more relevant maybe now that you have such a shift in players. So you think this is the top, but maybe your top players are not even there yet. You have the youngsters, and so the top is now maybe a little bit lower, or the average is different. You constantly have to find your new level again. Like
you almost change the lens in your glasses, didn't you? Like where the lens is so clear and you can see it, but when your optician comes and takes one out and puts one in, you got to probably just use the second one be a bit more patient. And then wait, because those top ones, you're right, they're gone, and the lens is still with the class lens, but actually, you just got to change it a little bit.
Yeah, interesting, recognizable for me as well. Okay, so you find every moment that your wife allows you to develop at home. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Yeah, it's also very recognizable. And well, the kids come into play and smash the laptop once in a while.
Yeah.
Well, I can imagine. So that's the thing. You have your sessions filmed. You talk with a lot of it's very like it's there's a lot of moments that you use, I think, to reflect. Is there also a specific routine for yourself that you write things down, or there's a development plan for yourself?
I guess the routine is probably post. So you use your laptops. So straight after the games, once I watch it back, I'll always make notes on. Okay. So the best way I try to do this is for the individuals, whatever their targets are, and what the game plan is. So 3 in possession, 3 out of possession. I'll always make notes on those, because that will tell me whether or not I was clear enough in their training development individually and collectively as a team. And then we will obviously debrief together as a squad, and I'll ask them what are their thoughts on the targets. And if they hit the same sort of things that I've hit, then I know we've matched a little bit. Or if we haven't, someone's got it wrong somewhere along the line. So that's, I always do that, as well as using time code. So I've got my analyst guy who always gives me the codes, etc. But I like to do it myself. I learned to code myself. I didn't before. I never had to do that because someone would do it for you. But now, I learned to code. I know how to do everything myself, and that just helps you have a little bit more of an edge. Yeah.
Okay, so an extra skill that imprints more moments and more development moments, evaluation moments. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, before we started, you said made some notes. What's the most important thing in your notes that we haven't discussed?
You've hit a lot of them, to be fair.
I didn't know.
You've done well.
But...
No, you've done well. Done really well. Kids. Probably this is probably the biggest one I've got written down is kids first, players second.
Okay. What do you mean with that?
Probably.
I can imagine, but
it's just it's just my big thing is football has a way of magnifying and making young players and kids, no matter whether you're coaching 9s, 10s, 11s, or you're coaching at under 23s, anything that is under 18, they're children. Yeah. They're children. They're 15 years old, 16 years old, 17 years old, 18 years old. They're still being looked after by their parents. Even an 18-year-old, he's a child, he or she, they're young. So I think you should always remember that no matter however stressful the job gets or how emotional the game may be, that they're kids first and they're players second. And that's what I always try to work off of. So I'll never swear. I try my best to never swear because you should be articulate enough. You wouldn't swear in the maths class in school.
I did swear in this podcast, sorry guys.
Did you? I didn't hear it. It must have beeped out.
I can beep it out afterwards. Nobody knows that I beeped it out.
No, you don't know, right? But I think that's where we've got to remember as coaches that let's not forget that as passionate as we are, they're kids first, players second, and that's the way. That would be it.
There's well, I've referred to it, I think already sooner. There's his interview with Van Nistelrooy. He said, okay, we're treating players, especially players between, let's say, 10 and 15. We're not treating them as children. We're treating them as young adults. They are into video analysis, performance environments. Everything is already on top of their, on top of their game. Every minute is used in their lives. And they almost burn out at the point that they should be on top. When they should through and they were 18, 19, they should be then hungry to learn instead of tired.
Yeah.
How do you connect to this your statement? Is it something you see or?
All the time, because it becomes Groundhog Day. Sometimes you remember that some of these boys are in these academies from 9 years old.
Yeah.
And they almost become mini pros. And we had a little laugh and a joke earlier about, they get their wash bags, they walk in their sandals, they got their headphones on, they're walking in. But then you look at that, and to me, that's worrying because I'm thinking, everything revolves around you being a professional footballer. But, come on, don't forget to have a kiss with your girlfriend around the back of the bike shed, let's don't forget the importance of growing up and playing runouts with your mates and, knock down ginger running away and, these things, driving down a hill on a trolley and, all these little things I think you can't take away from the kids. That's why I'm so big on creating the environments of making it fun because they spend a lot of time there and a lot of these kids will never even win a trophy at grassroots level because they're in academies. And when do you get a trophy in an academy? You don't. Yeah. So how can you recreate those opportunities to be kids? And I think it can be too serious and that can be dangerous.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially also at amateur clubs where there are ambitious coaches and they want to go to the pros themselves. So they treat their kids as pros as well.
Yeah.
It's a very, very fine line that we move on as coaches.
Yeah.
Even in your level, which is almost the top level, you still have to acknowledge that probably 90% of them won't make it.
Yeah.
And you have to find a way that they learn to live as well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be a crooked situation for them. They've been in this rigid life the first 18 years and then what they learn. They've always been in, well, we don't have to go into that all, but I think it's very important that I realized that even as an amateur coach, I was always performing and winning, but there's so much more to football.
Yeah.
It's an interesting discussion. Okay. Well, then we go to the last two questions for you.
Cool.
Are you a reader?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many books a year?
Not that much of a reader. No.
Okay, you read once in a while.
Yeah. So I will try and do probably 2 to 3 a year. But I am quite big on podcasts at the moment as well.
Okay, me too.
So because my drive to work is now an hour and 20 minutes or so.
Okay, that's far.
So I like to listen to loads of, YouTube to podcasts to the works.
You can listen to books. I can highly recommend you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Why not?
For me, I used to drive as well. 30 minutes every day. It's an hour every day. A book is averagely 6 to 8 hours. So you can listen to a book in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Well, I'm not saying books are holy, but that helped me. And then I was I'm not really a reader. But then people were saying, okay, this book. And I think I read them all. I didn't read them. I listened to them all.
Yeah.
I still do it. But not only now, I have a 20-minute bike ride.
Yeah.
It still works. Okay, but go on.
Still works. Yeah, no. I'm recommending some books now. I've got my pen out.
Yeah. You had the list, so I'm curious.
So I guess one of my, I tell you, it's a real strange one. There's a book I like. It's called like The Fred Factor.
Fred Factor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a book. It's by Mark Sanborn, but it's just about sort of your passion in your work and how you sort of bring it, your life balance into that, and how you sort of turn ordinary events into that extraordinary event. So, but it's always about connections with people and, small things like saying thank you and how you make people feel, and like taking sort of your service to another level. I really enjoyed that book. So that's one of my reads. Another book I probably liked was, this must have been said on the show before, I'm sure, is Legacy by James Kerr, the All Blacks. That's an outstanding book for culture and leadership. That's fantastic. That's one of my favorite books. There is. I'd probably mention the ones that people have said. And the other one is Raising Boys.
Okay.
Raising Boys is a nice one because obviously a load of us as coaches predominantly working in the male field, but there is one for any ladies that are listening, called Raising Girls as well, written by the same guy. So, but that's also a good book. But those two books are quite good.
Good, yeah. Legacy is discussed earlier. Also, one of our webinars. Actually, when this podcast is launched, the day before, we have a webinar with Peter Strasserbet. He's a coach of the U16s of the national teams of the Netherlands, and he also is really a big fan of this book. He uses the examples also in his work when, especially leadership and creating an atmosphere, which is every time short for him. So he has his team only maybe a week or 10 days, and then it's gone. So he uses that as well. So it's a recognizable book. But the Fred Factor, I really like that because in my daily ambition and working hard and you kind of forget the small things. Yeah. And you get so much joy out of talking to somebody or asking how they are when they are at the register or whatever, small things. Yeah. Make a big difference for them, but also for yourself. Yeah. I really like that. Yeah. That's exactly it, AJ. Those small little details, and people don't realize how big they are, and small little thank yous and small little positivity bits are amazing. I don't think we probably know just how big they are and what they can do, and having that positive mindset. Yeah. And you can actually train it for yourself as well. You have to really be conscious doing it first. So if you don't do it, it's not there. But if you find yourself, okay, I'm going to say hi to 3 people, whatever today. And at one point, you become a nice person. It's so crazy, but if you use the habit, and then life is a lot of, okay, now we're getting really philosophical and dramatic. Yeah, we are. No, but it's actually, it really works. Also, if you feel like shit, if you do those things, it makes you feel so much better. It does. Tell yourself, you think of 3 really good things.
of however you're feeling. You're getting ready for this,
Yeah.
Here we are. But
wow,
no, that's
great. The threat factor.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We have one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
Who should we talk to next?
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you two. I'm gonna give you a very good friend of mine. We worked at Spurs together. We've been at Reading together. And he's just become the assistant manager of Arsenal under 23s. So his name is Mehmet Ali. So he'll be one, and then the other one is I say he's a young coach, but he's getting up there now. A guy called Ryan Hall, and he works with the younger players at Tottenham Hotspurs. So I think there'll be two very, very good ones for you to. You've got a derby as well. You've got Tottenham and Arsenal.
We're going back to your London route here, or you're still living in London, I think.
I'm still in London, but you got a nice derby between one of them. You'll get one of them. I'll make sure
at the same time.
Maybe.
Okay, great. Well, let's try to catch up with them, and get them inside the coach's room.
I'll try my best for you.
Okay, Michael, I really enjoyed this talk. Thank you very much.
Same. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
There's much more in this story with you, and I would love to do it again. For now, I think you've shared a lot of interesting insights in your daily work, especially in how COVID affects your daily work, how it affects the process of talent development. Actually, literally, more changes, more moving of players, and what does it do with you, etc. How you develop is interesting. I think it's pretty recognizable for coaches as well. But I also like that you use your network in this, which is very important. And you gave me, two. I cannot read every book that every coach recommends, and then my book is going to kill me. But I really like. I really like the small details that you just closed up with. So, thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you, AJ.
Thank you for being here.
Pleasure. Take care.
Speak soon, Michael.
See you soon. Bye.